Guru Nation, welcome back to the Clinical Trials Guru. I've got a very special guest, Dr. Hazen, on from Ventura Clinical Trials. This is for all you site owners. We have a real-life PI here.
Live, yes.
We found her at a conference randomly. Okay, she's done a lot. Go watch the other videos. I mean, she's like step 4, level 4 physician researcher. We'll do a whole webinar on what that means. But Dr. Hazen has a very good, successful boutique research clinic that I actually monitor at.
Yes.
You guys do a good job. Ventura Clinical Trials. Thank you very much, Dr. Hazen, for coming on.
My pleasure. You're my favorite CRO, so of course I have to I'm allowing to go on the camera because usually I don't like this kind of stuff.
Thank
But
you
for
very much.
Anything.
Thank you very much. We only paid 1 Bitcoin for that. And I've got Chris here. Everybody knows Chris. So we're going to talk about a lot of issues related to sites.
Yes.
Maybe some physicians watching, but you know what we found actually? You might find this interesting. A lot of CRAs want to open sites because they go monitor at all these PIs and they're like, you know what? This is nothing special. I can do this too. Right?
Yeah, and that's very interesting because the number one thing that FDA looks for is PI involvement. So if the PI does not own the site, most likely they're not going to be involved. That's the reason. So when you do a study, it's not only okay to just sign a contract with a company. You actually have to get involved in the study. It's easy. Anybody. The plumber could have a site. The plumber could hire 20, let's say we're doing ulcers. The plumber may know 20 people with ulcers and say, you know what, I'm going to open a site, okay? I'm going to learn how to open a site, etc. But he has to hire a physician because there's attorneys watching. But he has to hire a physician, right? The physician has to be hands-on. The physician has to be watching what's going on in the research, watching the coordinator, watching the CRA, watching the EDC, that everything was entered properly. It is not like the olden days where 25 years ago, you would start research, you would do a study for a pharmaceutical company, you'd have a binder, FDA comes in, they look at the binders, you're done. Now, everything is entered in the EDC, right? Electronic data entry capture. And there's multiple EDCs, right? I mean, how many we've seen? Rave, Medivante. And you have to learn every single system as a PI. You cannot just trust a coordinator to sign off on your cases because you have to actually look at whether everything was entered. So it's kind of funny because when you do research the proper way, there's certain steps you need to take, right?
It's very funny. The reason I'm laughing is we know a lot of PIs that we're going to send this video link
that's
to.
where I wanted to go. So do you think all PIs follow this format?
I think they don't take, I don't know. I speak for myself. Sure. I've had the FDA in my office numerous times to know that what the FDA, and we've never had a 483,
Excellent.
So ever since the days of University of Florida, working for Dr. Sammy Ockham as a fellow, we've never had a 483 because the FDA, comes in. They want to see at least that you're there during the monitoring visit, right? So if you're a busy clinician, you are not going to be present for the FDA auditor. And if the FDA auditor has questions about, well, why did you enter this patient into the study? And you don't know the answer, that's a problem. So you have to be hands-on. I have seen so many things in 25 years or 20 years. Recently I've been doing it more. Ventura Clinical Trials is about 15 years old, wow. 14, 15 years old, because it's my boutique clinical trial company. Of course, I've done research for other companies and I've done research for University of Florida. I think the takeaway is if you're not hands-on, you're going to get yourself into problems. You're going to trust the coordinator, and that's not necessarily not saying that coordinators are not amazing, but they are not doctors, right? So when a coordinator puts, cough, spitting up blood from a puffer, and the coordinator puts, I'm not going to bother the doctor, I'm going to put it's an adverse event. But the patient ends up in the hospital. Nobody really followed up with that. It's no longer an adverse event. It's a serious adverse event. Who makes the call? The doctor. The doctor needs to be involved. 100%. You cannot do research if you do not get involved.
So the number one finding by the FDA is lack of PI oversight.
Lack of PI oversight.
So that's kind of,
I'm too much PI oversight.
well, that's good. There can't be too much.
No, well, according to CRAs and sponsors, sometimes I'm too much because
Really?
they call me intense. I'm intense
Well, that's good.
because guess
I don't
what?
think there can be too much. How can there be too much?
And listen, there's patients that are taking these drugs that are investigative. We need to be the eyes, whether
Absolutely.
the drug, because I cannot sleep at night if I give an investigative drug and my patient's dead. I can't sleep at night if the drug
Absolutely.
goes out into the market and it kills other people,
Yep.
right?
Yeah.
So we have to have a conscience. We have to have a systematic way. Of course, there's not that much money when you're doing
Right.
massive, when you're not overlooking and you're letting other people do your job, but it needs to be done the proper way and the quality way.
So many questions I want to get into this video. One of them, so you have an interesting theory, which maybe I'm starting to turn around to, because my theory has and still is, I won't give it up yet. The best site owners are study coordinators. And your theory is the best site owners are PIs, but what if that's not possible? What if someone's out there that's a study coordinator?
Then they shouldn't be doing.
Should they partner with a PI and say,
They
hey, I'm going
should
to give
partner
you...
with a PI. They should partner. It needs to be a partnership. Ultimately, the MD degree is the doctor. You need a doctor overlooking. The coordinator will, as good as they are at making sure the paperwork is done properly, EDC is entered, they will not replace the medical doctor. You need medical doctors.
So we've been giving bad advice when we tell people not to partner with the doctor?
Well, we've told everyone it's our opinion. I always say, in my opinion, the best site owners are coordinators because doctors are too busy. I mean, you
Then-
don't
then-
come around that often, Dr. Hazen. Like, for every one of you, there's like 1,000 other...
Yeah. I have
know.
a...
And I think that's why the FDA likes us, because I am hands-on. I mean, I will tell you, there's been time where the FDA was in my office and, the patient that was on the trial was in my office. And I'm like, oh, look, Mr. Josh, you want to ask him questions, go for it. So I think we need to have that full transparency. We need to have that full openness so that the FDA feels comfortable that the drug is actually safe.
Now, as a specialist, how do you deal with the ebbs and flows of, gastro's busy in research and then it, it goes in a decline because everything's ebbs and flows, cyclical. How do you deal with that?
For me, it's basically, yes, research, it's basically you're 1 year, you have nothing, you're not doing any studies, and then the next year, you're doing a ton of studies. And so you have to kind of keep your balance as a site and as a physician practicing. I'm not that big.
Right,
that
you're boutique,
I'm really boutique, so I've not gotten myself, I have two girls that are like amazing. When the business is slow and we don't have trials, well, they help me in my practice.
And you're smart because you're vertically integrating. I always tell site owners, you got to think of ways to put yourself out of business. This thing called the virtual trials is like scaring the heck out of everybody. Who knows if that's going to come to pass or not? But you as a site should be thinking, how do I put myself out of business? How do I horizontally integrate, offer other services, vertically integrate? You became a sponsor, right?
I
And a
became,
lab
I
vendor.
mean, I became a laboratory because I wanted to understand.
And you're
I want to
becoming a
understand. I want to understand what's going on in the microbiome world. I want to understand the microbes, how they interact with each other, how they create diseases. That's really my inquisitive mind. Mind. I've always been the kind that, what is the problem? Not just put a Band-Aid. So that's how I've practiced. That's why I've stayed small. Unfortunately, in this day and age, it's kind of hard with, insurances and cuts in reimbursement and everything, and legal lawyers, looking for, problems. It's hard to be a good physician. It's hard to juggle, to give the attention. Also, there's a little bit of a high expectation, I think. I think people are, want the quick fix. They want the answer right away. But, all we can do as physicians is really give hope. We're all dying. We're all going to die. There's a time limit to the mortality. I think we're just wanting to expand life a little bit longer, and while we do that, we want to understand life. Really, that's why I went into medicine. I wanted to understand life, If in the process I'm healing patients, and if in the process I'm changing the face of a disease, and I've helped, a company put out a medication that can cure a disease or appease the patient and heal and let the patient stay alive longer so that they could see their grandchildren. I had a patient with pancreatic cancer that I kept alive for 8 years.
Wow.
She sent me, she wrote on, the last letter was given to me on her deathbed, and she goes, I appreciate everything you've done for trying to find the next drug and the next drug. One of the advantages of clinical trial, and I think what most doctors want to get into clinical trials, and they look at, well, maybe this is a good way to financially make money. It's actually not. It's when you start spending the money it takes to do a good quality, you will sink faster than the Titanic, because it is very difficult to be on top of it all, and the finances are definitely my least favorite, and I don't even want to take care of that. But what I'm saying is that when the number one advantage to being in clinical research is the availability to be involved with sponsors that are changing the disease. So if your child has a problem, you have access to the cutting edge medication. And that's why I wanted to be in it. I wanted to be the doctor that if something is wrong with me, I have access to the most cutting edge medication. And it's very common that I will start a trial just for one patient.
Wow.
We've had a patient that cannot afford all these biologics, and I started a trial just for him. It was
With another sponsor?
With a sponsor who offered him a biologic for free. He's doing fantastic. And we extended the study so that he could keep getting his biologic. But we only had one patient in the study. Sponsors don't really like having one patient, so we tried to bring in more patients to fit in the study so they can come to monitor more. But, for the patient, it was great that he was on that trial. For the sponsor, they got some good quality data on that patient, and they know we're doing things by the book.
Chris, I'm going to let you ask some questions because we got a real life PI here who's really good, actually.
I'm more curious about the 8 years in the pancreatic cancer. I thought that was like a 1-year death sentence.
No, she kept going, and I hooked her up with one of the best oncologist who does clinical trials, and he had a clinical trial, and he said to her, look, cancer, you have to change your mindset, and you have to think like you have diabetes, and you just need to take your medication every day or every week, whatever protocol he had her on. But she was very thankful because she got to see her grandchildren.
Oh, absolutely.
And it was just amazing to be part of the passing of the patient, and to feel like I was a part of giving her an extension.
Yeah, absolutely.
So,
We spoke with a doctor in New York. I don't want to mention his name, but he said it was usually 6 months at best he could give them.
Right.
At best.
well, I think, you can easily see pancreatic cancer and you say hospice. And certainly if your insurance doesn't cover the medication, it's very difficult. And also finding the doctor that's doing in your town, your city, it's kind of hard. So that's why clinical trials are actually a benefit. And I encourage every patient to go on clinicaltrials.gov and look for the newest medication that's on investigation if nothing is working for them.
So if you had to pick, which would you say you enjoy more, research or clinic?
Well, I enjoy research. I just don't enjoy the business aspect of research.
This is a good segue. So a few more questions as my legs are getting tired standing. Dr. Hazen, because of what you just said,
Yes.
have you ever had, and I don't even know, have you ever had someone run your site for you, like those aspects? Or are you hands-on in those aspects, even though you don't like it?
The only reason that I have not is because of patient privacy.
Okay.
We have a lot of patients that, are high profile, and I don't want to be on People magazine
I see.
that, somebody leaked that somebody had a
You're in a
disease.
unique setting.
Yeah, I'm in a unique setting. I think I prefer patient privacy. I think ultimately the business aspect that I don't like is that, the outsourcing of these trials now is to abroad, so Philippines, India. So it's very difficult to get. When you go with big CROs, you're not one of them. I can always pick up the phone and say, I need you to get me fees for an Uber for my patient, and you'll say, no problem, I'll call the sponsor and get the Uber. Because, the continuity of the trial and to avoid dropouts of these patients to continue these studies, you need to have a one-on-one with the sponsor to say, look, the patient's about to drop out because they can't drive 45 minutes. I mean, I'm in California. My site could be 2 hours for some people, right? So we need to have that discussion with the sponsor from the CRO level and say, Dan, I need a driver, otherwise the patient's going to stop following. We need to make it easier for these patients. Or, you know what, if the patient is going to stay in my office for an hour, for a whole day, please make sure we have some kind of food to feed them and, treat people like human beings, right? So those discussions have to be happening with CROs to sponsors. And nobody likes to go back and talk to sponsors about these things, but those are the things that keep the quality and the research going. And so those are the parts that I don't like, because then if a patient drops out, it's, well, Dr. Hazen, why didn't you do everything you could to keep the patient? Well, I tried, but it's kind of, hard. So that's the business part that I don't like. The other part that I don't like is there's a huge demand of, we're told, okay, we got to close the study in a month, or not even in a month. Sometimes I get like a 3-day notice. So I had a study where I had 66 patients. I'm supposed to close the study and look at the EDC and sign off all those case books in 3 days.
Yeah.
It's not going to happen. So, that's where sponsors need to kind of understand a little bit better. We need to give a time frame for the doctor. Give us at least, tell us, by May 30th, a month from now, you're going to be closing the site.
Some insight into that. I'm sure the sponsors, they're thinking of the typical PI who just goes in and batch signs everything,
right,
opposed to you who wants to look at everything individually.
I there's something to be said for like entering the adverse events in the EDC. I cannot tell you how many times I've had CRAs tell my coordinator, no, this shouldn't be in the EDC. And then I go back and I look at the EDC and I'm like, why isn't this in the EDC? And they said, well, they said it wasn't important. Everything's important. It needs to be in the EDC.
Absolutely.
We've had one study where the sponsor asked us to delete data from the EDC.
Yeah,
Right.
protocol required data.
Right. Well,
Good luck to that sponsor. All right. Thank you, Dr.
and they
Hazen.
think like FDA is not going to catch on to
Notice,
that,
right,
of course.
right.
Yeah. So you got to do due diligence. You got to be on top of it. We're not in the business of selling products for sponsor. We're in the business of doing clean research for the sponsor. That's why we're hired. I always say, if a drug is good, it's going to go to the market. If a drug is bad, there's nothing you can do. There's nothing you can do about it. If it's not statistically significant, it doesn't matter. How many patients you have. If it doesn't show that it's working, it's not going to work. Once it's in the market, it's going to come out. How many drugs have we seen have gotten out in the market, Zalnorm, out of the market, and then huge problems, side effects, lawyers are on it, company goes down.
Yeah, I see those commercials all the time.
Yeah, so you got to be clean research all the way to avoid problems down the road.
So PIs, physicians make the best site owners, apparently. If you're a CRA or a coordinator, maybe partner with a physician with equity. Maybe we've been partnering with the wrong people, Chris.
That's a possibility.
All right.
Well, now you know.
Now we know. Thank you very much, Dr. Hazen. VenturaClinicalTrials.com.
Yes.
And on LinkedIn, Dr. Sabine Hazen Steinberg on LinkedIn. And just go connect with her there, network. And thank you very much for doing the interview.
Thank you. My pleasure.
Thank you, everyone, for watching and listening. And we'll catch you all later. Bye-bye.